Joe Chiccarelli here. We're at Eastwest Studios in Hollywood. You're watching BURL TV. I'm a record producer. Over the years, I've had the good fortune to work with many, many great artists, including Elton John, U2, Beck, Morrissey, The Strokes, My Morning Jacket, The White Stripes, Michael Bublé, even recently Weezer. I moved to LA when I was about 19, 20 years old, got a job as an assistant engineer at Cherokee Studios, and I was really absolutely lucky. I was the new guy at the studio and got put on all the odd sessions. Frank Zappa booked into the studio one day. His engineer was tied up, couldn't make the session, and Frank decided to take a chance on me. So I ended up engineering for Frank Zappa at 20 years old, and that was my break into making records. So by the time I was 21, I had a hit record under my belt with Frank Zappa. I was pretty fortunate. I've definitely done a lot of soundtrack work over the years, everything from a music supervisor on TV shows, films, and as well as doing cuts for soundtracks, including a lot of Judd Apatow films, going way back to even Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Over the years, there's always been cuts for soundtracks that I've been involved with, and that's always a fun experience too. So we're here at Eastwest, which is just a legendary studio. Been here, I think, since the 1950s, early 60s, built by Bill Putnam, who was UA Audio and really started as Frank Sinatra's engineer. So all the rooms here have BURL converters. They have motherships. This is just an amazing, legendary facility in that these rooms, these acoustic spaces, are just made to record music in. I think my very first introduction to BURL was at an audio event in San Francisco at Hyde Street Studios when Rich was demoing the converters. And instantly I was pretty impressed with what I heard. There was a smoothness to it. There was something that most other converters didn't really have. I heard something that sort of reminded me of an analog tape machine, so I was quite taken by it. Over the years, I think I've become a BURL convert, and I still like to have an analog stereo bus chain. I still love my high-end compressors and EQs on my stereo bus, so I do use a B32 summing mixer from BURL, and all my outputs from Pro Tools come through that converter. They go into my analog stereo bus gear and then back through the B2 Bomber to print to Pro Tools. I was really familiar with the Mothership and couldn't afford one. They're pretty amazing box. I think the first time, other than a demo that I heard with the Mothership, my buddy Vance Powell, he and I have worked on a number of projects together. He's mixed some things for me, and Vance has a Mothership, and instantly when I heard my tracks through his Mothership, I was like, whoa, this sounds better than I'm accustomed to hearing this, just flat through your system. Pretty impressive. So when I got the B16 Black, I was really curious. I felt like if it sounded anything like the Mothership, I was going to be very, very happy. And the interesting test was that I was in the middle of two different mixes for two different artists, and had to disassemble my whole system to evaluate it, had to swap out my old converters for the B16 Black, and instantly when I put the B16 in, made sure everything was calibrated, all of a sudden my mid-range just came forward. The guitars jumped out of the mix. The vocal had way more presence. I just felt it was right in my ear. There was an openness to the top end. I want to say that everything just felt bigger sounding. And I thought for a second that maybe I'm hyping myself. And when I went and put up the second session, a different artist, and compared it to mixes that were in progress, and I had print tracks that I could A/B, it was quite shocking, the difference. I almost felt like I had to do less to my mix, that I could almost click some of the processing back a notch, because perhaps I was actually fighting the sound of bad converters with my old gear. I was really surprised at the difference in sound between my old converters, which to me were an industry standard. I've used them on so many different records and loved them, and really spent some time choosing them before I put them in my system. But when the B16 Black came in, I don't know, something about the sound of the transformer in there, it just kind of gave the mid-range this clarity and lift, and it definitely sounds in the family of all other BURL gear. There's a tone to it that's got warmth and sweetness, yet presence and clarity. I'm constantly traveling to different studios to work, and sometimes I walk in and you look at what converters are there, and instantly you're like, oh, this is a little disappointing. And I hope that this new product, the B16 Black, being more affordable, that it'll force a lot of other people to up their system, because I think the difference in tonality and clarity, it's undeniable, and I think it's worth an upgrade for everybody.